What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, I'm going to be breaking down 10 cases, 10 celebrities that are currently incarcerated right now, and some of them you probably forgot about. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery who has also, in fact, gone to prison. It's not a flex, it's just a fact. If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, that's $2. It's only ever going to be $2. All of that is linked down below, as well as my vlog channel, my podcast. I just started another channel, so definitely go check that out. But yeah, without further ado, let's kick this thing off. We all know about R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, Danny Masterson, and Diddy, right? Like those are the big names where the cases are so awful and so gross. They get tons of media attention. And the other ones that have done crazy things are either 90s stars, or they kind of just fell back in the shadows because of these really big cases. So, I mean, that's 4 right out the gate that I think you guys are very familiar with. So they're not technically on my list, but they're on the list, you know? Number 1, Fetty Wap. This was such a stupid and unnecessary crime. Like, all of his decisions when it came to how he spent his money and how he went from having $22 million in the bank to having $0 in the bank. It's all so frivolous and unnecessary. But when you grow up with essentially nothing and then you become a millionaire seemingly overnight, a lot of the time you don't have the knowledge on how to manage that money. And you also, want to have all the things that you never had. But the money is going to run out if you're not producing, songs, you're not having money come in, which is what happened with Fetty Wap. He had a couple of really big freaking hits and he made a ton of money, and then he kind of just hung out and spent it all. So he would buy cars and houses and all this stuff for all of his kids and baby mamas and all the things, right? And then one day he realized, oh shit, like the money's running out, I better do something. And he started to, try to make more music. And somewhere in here, he came up with the idea, very stupid idea, to transport drugs across the country from California to New York. And he was making an insane amount of money, like wild amounts of money. So he gets arrested for conspiracy to distribute a controlled substance and use of firearms in connection with a drug trafficking ring. This is somebody, if you guys don't remember, he was going on stage with Post Malone. He really could have had a very promising career. He was eventually convicted of trafficking 220 pounds of cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and crack cocaine across Long Island and New Jersey. And on May 24th of 2023, he was sentenced. He was ultimately sentenced to 72 months in federal prison. But while he was out on bond awaiting this case, he would just do all kinds of dumb shit. He called someone on a FaceTime that was cooperating with the feds, and he threatened to unalive him. And what's weird is like the feds didn't immediately arrest him. They let him chill out on bail for months after that because, he kind of incriminated himself on certain videos and social media, and the feds love evidence. So they're like, let's just let this dude chill and hand us more evidence. Shut the fuck up on the internet, especially if you are being indicted. Okay? Cool. He is currently in FCI Edgefield. Number 2 is the craziest story that I have even heard in a long time. Child star Ryan Grantham. He was in Diary of a Wimpy Kid and I think Riverdale, and there was a couple other ones that he did. He was just 21 years old. On March 31st of 2020, he decided that he was going to kill the prime minister, and he didn't want his mom to know what he did. So he unalived her, he fatally shot her, and then loaded up all of his guns and everything into a car to then go try to unalive the prime minister. And on the way there, he had a sudden change of heart and decided not to do it anymore. So he literally just killed his mother for absolutely no reason. There was no reason for it at all. His explanation of it was he was suffering from a major depressive episode. And he was using cannabis, among other drugs, to try to self-medicate for that depressive episode. So, oh my God. He did meet with 2 court-appointed psychiatrists who also agreed that, yeah, he was having a major depressive episode. The kid was really struggling with his mental health. How sad. It was just so senseless. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and at his sentencing pledged to spend his life rehabilitating himself and helping others. He is eligible for parole in 2036 after serving 14 years. Will he be granted that? I don't know. Number 3, and this is like, baseball player Mel Hall. Do you guys remember him? Are you guys baseball fans? He played for the New York Yankees. He joined the major leagues with the Chicago Cubs, though, and he was only 20 years old when he joined the major leagues. But in 1989, during Hall's first year with the Yankees, he noticed a 15-year-old freshman in high school and her friends in the stands. He spent the time playfully pretending like he was going to toss her a ball, but never did. At the suggestion of his father, the girl wrote Hall a letter asking for a signed ball, and to her shock, Hall called her house, inviting the family to another game. It was super weird because he was dating this girl with the parents' permission, and he started paying some of their bills. But the 19-year-old broke it off with Hall. All super weird, right? After his career ended, he became a youth sports coach for both basketball and softball. Of course, this is going to earn you some trust with the young girls on the team and their parents. You're creating a trust with people in your community if you are coaching any kind of sport in that town. So just like before, where he met that girl at a game and then was like at the parents' house all the time, he did the same thing. He earned the trust of this family and then like moved in with this family. That's where he started to SA some of these girls. And then in 2007, 2 of his victims found each other online, including one who was just 12 years old. Hall was arrested and found guilty at trial and convicted on 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child and 2 counts of indecency with a child. He received a sentence of 45 years in prison with no chance of parole for 22 years and 4 months. Yeah. He is currently incarcerated in Texas and he's not eligible for parole until 2031. Then we have Amy Loken. She was in Crybaby and she played the role opposite of Johnny Depp. She had kind of a tumultuous relationship, a lot of drama, a lot of DV, just kind of a messed up situation. She was struggling with alcoholism. On June 27th of 2010, she was driving her car ridiculously fast and crashed into another car, and that person died on the scene, and she was charged with second-degree vehicular manslaughter. I tell you guys all the fucking time, do not drink and drive. Do not drink and drive. It's just such a dickhead move. You're putting everyone, including yourself, at risk, but usually the person that is drunk survives the crash because they're more loose. I don't know I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but I've seen so many times where the driver lives and someone else, an innocent person, dies. She's currently incarcerated in New Jersey and she will be eligible for parole December of this year, so very soon, just next month she's eligible for parole. This is a weird one. So actor and mixed martial arts fighter Joe Son, he was convicted of 1 count of felony torture. The statute of limitations had run out on the SA charges and sentenced to 7 years to life. Just a month after beginning his sentence, Son killed his cellmate. He was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to an additional 27 years. And what happened with him is he was arrested randomly because he was kicking in the door to his roommate's car, and the cops got called, and in that case they took his DNA, and that linked him to 2 cold case files where he brutally attacked someone. On Christmas Eve of 1990, he and an accomplice pretended to be lost as they approached a 19-year-old woman walking her dog. They then threw her into their car and held her hostage for hours, beating her, raping her. Son also repeatedly threatened to shoot her as he counted the bullets in his gun. At the trial, the victim recounted how Son said he was giving her to himself as a Christmas present. Yeah, but the case was 2 decades old, and it just, happenstance that he was acting like a freaking lunatic, and the cops were like, hey man, you're gonna get arrested for this, and we need your DNA, and it linked him to that cold case file. Our next celebrity is a Real Housewives of Utah. Her name is Jen Shah, and she was convicted of fraud. This was such a crappy crime because what she was doing is she was getting the trust of senior citizens and she was taking tons of money from them, and she was giving them lessons or coaching on how to use services like website building and business coaching, which had absolutely no freaking value because it's not real. And they don't know that. They think that, she's very successful and very intelligent in the business world and she can help them build their business and website. No, she can't. I love that she maintained her innocence for a while too, but on the show, they make jokes about fraud and Jen and fraud and Jen's committing fraud, all kinds of stuff. She was ultimately sentenced to 6.5 years and is incarcerated at FPC Bryan in Texas. So she's eligible for parole in 2028. But the crappy thing about financial crimes like this is oftentimes the victims don't get their money back. Not even close. Our next celebrity is Michael Jace. And you might have recognized him from a really tiny cameo in Forrest Gump, but mostly he was a policeman on the TV show The Shield. He thought that his wife was going to leave him because she was, and he decided that he was not going to let that happen. So he fatally shot her. He told her, if you like running, then run to heaven. How fucking evil could you be, man? What are you doing, dude? He was ultimately sentenced to 40 years in prison, 40 years to life in prison, and he's serving his time in Corcoran in California. Our next criminals are reality TV show stars Julie and Todd Chrisley. They were arrested for wire fraud. The wild thing about this is there was a state investigation that they got away with, and then the feds were like, nah, you're going. So they committed fraud by lying on bank statements. They were not paying their taxes and hiding money from the IRS. But they were found guilty of conspiracy to commit bank fraud, conspiracy to defend the U.S. government, and tax fraud. Julie was convicted of wire fraud, and Todd was sentenced to 12 years, and Julie was sentenced to 7. I have to look up all of the details of that case because at face value, I'm like, why was Todd given more time? Shouldn't they get the same amount of time? But if he had committed fraud more times than her, I guess that would make sense. But I always see those cases and I'm like, that's kind of weird, right? Shouldn't they were doing the same thing. They knew the same thing. They were a team in that. Shouldn't they get the same sentence? But it almost never works out that way. Todd is serving his sentence at Federal Correctional Institute in Pensacola, Florida, and Julie is incarcerated in Florida's federal institution, Mariana. Todd is eligible for release January 22nd of 2033, and Julie is eligible for parole October 19th of 2028. Just seems like a long time from now, Maybe just don't commit fraud. Maybe just don't steal people's money and pay your taxes, because the feds win, dude. And that's how they got Capone. On tax fraud. You don't want to fuck around on the thing that got Capone taken down, okay? Our next celebrity, even though I wouldn't call him a celebrity, is Jerry Harris. Do you guys remember the show on Netflix, the cheerleading show? Yeah, he was a cheerleader on that show. He cheerled for Navarro, which is it's one of the best schools that you could cheerlead for. The name of the show was called Cheer. In 2020, a federal warrant was issued for him, alleging that when he was 19, he SA'd a 13-year-old and asked the 13-year-old to send bad pictures, illicit pictures of nudes. I think I can say that. And in the text messages, this kid clearly says, hey, I'm 13, and Jerry just did not care. He was arrested and charged with production of child SA images. Harris admitted to trading sexual images with 10 to 15 children that he knew were minors. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison in Oklahoma. Do you guys remember this guy? He was a football player. His name was Dave Maggett. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he played for the Giants. In 1998, he was accused of SA and robbing a Toronto sex worker. But prosecutors eventually dropped the SA charge and only tried him for robbery. The trial ended in a hanged jury. And that was the first moment in a series of many moments where he would just repeat that same behavior over and over again. In 2009, he broke into the home of a woman that he had loaned $200 to. In his creepy ass way, he sat on the edge of the bed and he's like, I'm gonna get that payment. And unfortunately, she immediately went to the hospital and got the kit done and all of the tests done. And it was, cohesive with what had happened. And he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. And he is currently in South Carolina and eligible for parole July 6th of 2034. It's not easy to get that conviction. It's really not. Out of every 1,000 cases like that, 975 perpetrators walk free. And out of the remainder, only about 25 of them ever even see prison. So 25 approximately out of 1,000 people that rape people see prison. And we all remember the Tiger King, right? Crazy. He was sentenced for cruelty to animals, and he was sentenced to 21 years in prison, and he's eligible for release in 2036. I don't think he was like a hella celebrity. Like, I mean, I know he was on Netflix and everything, but he was such a messed up individual, and I can't believe that he would just shoot all of the tigers that he did. And yeah, just awful. There were a lot of things that happened on that show, but we were all glued to it in 2020. I think about him randomly sometimes, like just these random things that he would say. Wild. But yeah, he can get out of prison in 2036. All right, you guys, I'm going to end today's video here. As always, I love you. Stay safe, stay in recovery, whatever that looks like to you. Don't break the law. Don't take people's money and pay your fucking taxes. And I will see you guys in my next one.